Okay, well, that was the longest minute ever. It is 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call the board meeting to order. Ms. Henderson, we collect roll.
Mrs. Horn,
Here.
Mr. Chitwood,
Present.
Mrs. Baker,
Here.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet, here, Mr. Hull,
Here.
Mr. Beecham,
Here.
Mr. Miller. We have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. Up first, approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, guys. Any questions or discussion? Ms. Henderson, please collect the vote.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Approved.
And if everybody will please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you guys so much and welcome to our meeting. We have kind of a full house. It's always exciting when we have so many folks joining us. We start off every meeting by reading the mission and vision just to keep those in the forefront of our mind. Our mission is to be a school district that engages students to learn, create, adapt, and succeed in an ever-changing world. And our vision is to maintain small town values and empower each student to achieve world-class success. Did we have any public participation?
No, we did not.
Thank you. And up next is approval of the consent agenda, which includes approval of the minutes, the clerk's report, the treasurer's report, payroll and claims, personnel, the ESY contract for the Kansas School for the Deaf, and the Spring Hill High School International Thespian Festival trip.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented and read.
A second.
Thank you so much. Any other discussions before we vote? Ms. Henderson, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood.
Yes.
Approved.
Great. Thank you so much. Up first, good news, recognitions, and announcements.
Yes, we have several good news recognitions this evening, and our Director of Communications, Mr. Scott Peavy, will be sharing that, and we'll recognize those individuals, and then we'll get some pictures of each at the conclusion. So again, Mr. Peavy.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Trail, and good evening, everybody. We're very fortunate to have two groups of students here today to be recognized. We have our robotics team from Spring Hill High School, who's in the midst of their inaugural season and doing some fantastic things. And we also have each of the building level spelling bee champions from our elementary and middle school. So the way this will work here in a second, I'll invite up Mrs. Elsie to talk about the robotics team and their season. And I believe they have some props that they're going to bring along for the competition. I think there's going to be some elementary and middle school students who want to join the robotics team right here by the time they see it. So after they talk about robotics, I'll actually ask you guys then to kind of hang out in the back. We'll do the spelling bee presentation, and then we'll do pictures of both groups at the end. So we only have to move back and forth one time. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Elsie to talk robotics.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. My name is Rachel Elsie. I teach engineering and robotics at the high school. We have two teams, Bronco Bites and Bronco Bots. We have had an incredible rookie year, as I call it, in First Tech Challenge. And both teams have competed in 3 qualifying meets and then at the tournament meet this past January for the tournament. And this past weekend, our Bots team, number 30526, they actually proceeded from the tournament to the super qualifier, which is basically the postseason for FTC. So they were some top 6 out of the tournament, and they ranked high enough with awards. achieved the Sustain Award second place. Sustain Award in First Tech Challenge is an award that that builds a legacy. It's to sustain the program, and that is what we intend to do. That is our plan, to reach out with our middle school and elementary schools and bring up the program for STEM and for engineering and for robotics. And then this past weekend on Saturday, we had that super qualifier, and from the super qualifier, our teams can go possibly to state. And we, being the rookie team, we were there to absorb all that we could. And out of the qualifying meets, we ranked number 9. Top 6 teams get to choose for playoffs, and we were chosen by the Cashew Chickens out of Springfield, Missouri, to be their alliance partners in the playoffs. And so we got to we were 6th seed, and we ended up playing the 1st and 2nd seed at the playoffs, and ranked tied really for 4th out of the entire qualifying league out of 36 teams. So we, as our rookie year, are heading to state. We will be the only the only rookie team at state. The next, I guess, youngest team, it has had at least 2 seasons experience ahead of us. So we are going to Rolla, Missouri on March 7th, and we'll be taking that trip. So please check off that approval when you see that, so that we can head and represent Spring Hill School District there. And just want to say I am so proud of the team and all that they have accomplished, not just Bronco Bites, but also Bronco Bots, but also Bronco Bites, and everything that they've accomplished this year in class and outside of class. It's been really great to watch them grow and to be their coach and teacher for this inaugural season. So they want to show off their robots. We also have some hardware to show off a little as well, too. So if you guys want to go ahead, and they're shooting robots because they have to shoot the artifacts or the wiffle balls into a goal, but I've told them to turn down the ball.
Shoot at.
Oh, go for it.
Do not shoot.
Do not. Please shoot. Oh no.
No, I told them to shoot at. What are you doing?
Okay, turn it around. So the goal is that those wiffle balls, or the artifacts, as the theme this year is archaeology, they are to get into 2 different goals at the back. One is red, one is blue, based on their alliance. And there is a pattern that if they get the balls in a pattern, they can earn extra points. And there's a lot to it, but we've worked really, really hard. This robot we completely redid at the end of the tournament. So we had a month to tweak, and we were one of the fastest shooting robots at the qualifier. So.
LP right here.
No, it's not fast.
Try that one. You can make it sound better.
I do that.
Now you're on yours.
Still broken.
So the game changes every year, so it'll be interesting to see in September what the new game is and what the challenge will be. But I don't know if you guys had any questions for the students. Oh, yes, yep, thank you.
Yeah.
So we also have been 3D printing with our fundraiser. These are both of them at scrimmage. And then during some of the meets out of the tournament, getting ready to go and get, after they've learned that they were going to the super qualifier. And then the bot with our wheel guards to protect our wheels. Our original version 1, or our first iteration that took us to the tournament, which I can let them speak if you guys have questions about how they got from there to here. And this is from Saturday. And we did run into some hardware issues where one of our wheels completely broke. And if it wasn't for the gracious professionalism of other teams and coming to our assistance, we would not be going to state. That is what FIRST is. And they are very much, every team is for each other, helping instead of having that opponent competition rivalry kind of atmosphere. It's very much everyone helps, everyone gets on board. And, you know, if if they can help, they will. So there is Finalist Alliance with our hardware. And then this is the Cashew Chickens, which is a super fun. They're out of Springfield, so Springfield with Spring Hill.
So I have a question,
Mhm.
and I've asked it before when you guys have been displaying at one of the middle schools and then maybe even one of the competitions. But the thing that fascinates me is the propulsion on the wheels. So I know you've got the forward and the reverse, right? So that's probably just one motor that cycles one direction and then the other direction, right? Is there a separate motor then that spins the wheels that allow it to crab?
So it's all in the same motor.
It's all one motor. Is there a differential in there then?
No, it's all one motor. Each wheel is driven by its own motor on a 19:2-to-1 gear ratio.
So each wheel has its own motor. Okay.
I had the pleasure of going and seeing one of the competitions. So just for the record, Bytes is BYT.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Just for everybody at home. It was really great to see. So some of the questions I have leading into it, and we'll see if we can get some of the teams involved. Most impactful thing that you learned about engineering? What's the lesson that's going to stick with you?
I think one of the major lessons we can use is the process of your first design isn't your best. So like bots, for example, they went from their old shooter, which could shoot a couple balls in a minute, this one, and they turned it into this new shooter, which can shoot in half a second, 3 balls.
All right. So iterative production, iterative improvement. Awesome. The other thing that I wanted to bring out, and I'm sure you're going to point them out here, is that I was struck by is that this, just like all of our other competitive events, is also supported by a cast of characters, and they're standing at the back of the room not to be recognized. And I think they should, quite frankly, come forward, because especially the person I'm going to call out is Mr. Miles Osborne from Garmin, who is generously donating his time to the team. We love partnerships like that. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the team. And all the rest of the folks who, I'm terrible, so I can't remember your names, but sir, take a bow as well, please.
Mr. David Provost and Mr. Jackson Alex are our two other coaches with the teams. Obviously Miles Osborne with Garmin for his helping with our software engineering and working closely with our programmers. Raise your hands. There you go. And then we're also missing one of our mentors, Nick Nash, who is from Black and Beach, and he is more of our mechanical building expertise.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. Well, good job, everybody. And I can't wait to see what you do next year.
I need to know if I get back up and like a big picture. Oh, good. So if you can drive out, then you. It's a lot of pressure. Try and.
They don't like the carpet with the
One thing about that.
Yeah.
If I do it the old fashioned.
Yeah. No, it's so much cooler the other way.
Yeah.
All right, then. So we'll go ahead and switch gears now to our next group of students. We are pleased to recognize the 2025-26 Spelling Bee champions from each of our elementary and middle schools. These students demonstrated outstanding preparation and academic excellence in representing their schools and competing at a very high level. In addition to their academic success, many of these kids are involved in a bunch of different things: athletics, fine arts, a variety of school community activities, and balancing practices, performances, games, and all the other commitments that a lot of these kids have while also preparing for a spelling bee in order to compete at their best. Takes a great deal of discipline and time, and you guys should be commended for that. And we want to recognize those well-rounded efforts that each of you have made, both in the classroom and out. And I also want to acknowledge just how challenging a spelling bee can be. You know, there's a lot of activities that maybe you don't have a great day, and there are other teammates that maybe you can stand back a little bit and let someone else carry the load. But man, when it's a spelling bee, it's just you and your nerves and being able to stand on stage and compete and do your best. So you guys deserve a lot of credit for what you were able to do. So now I'm pleased to recognize the following champions. So as I call your name, please stand up and step forward. And I have a little certificate I'll hand you, and then we'll do some pictures here in a second, okay? So first up, from Woodland Spring Middle School, we have seventh grader Lake Strickland. Right there very awkwardly in front of everybody. There you go. Next, from Forest Spring Middle School, we have seventh grader Hannah Verhule. From Dayton Creek Elementary, we have fifth grader Austin Boxberger. I like that baseball uniform. I'm jealous for my son's team. I kind of want to steal that color design, but that's neither here nor there. Next up for Timber Stage Elementary, we have fourth grader Olivia Butke. And from Prairie Creek Elementary, our other fourth grade champion, Hadley Glockner. From Wolf Creek Elementary, fifth grader Elijah Canary. And not able to be here today, unfortunately, but from Spring Hill Elementary, the champion was fifth grader Nick Martin. You give him a round of applause, even though he's not here. And finally, from Spring Hill Middle School, who also gets a special congratulations, we have sixth grader Tristan Ludwig, who was not only the SHMS champion, but he also earned a fifth place finish at the Johnson County Spelling Bee, held back at the beginning of January. And that's an outstanding accomplishment and a wonderful representation for our district. So Tristan Ludwig. And now real quick, before I do the picture, if any of our board members have any comments or questions, you know, put anybody on the spot, spelling a word or anything, now would be the time. So if you guys want to turn around, they might have a question for you.
Okay, I'm going to throw one out there. Terracotta. I'm not sure if that's right.
Because I wouldn't even.
Who knows if that's right?
No.
Congrats, guys. That's so great that you guys were able to do that. What was the winning word for each of you? Do you remember what it was? No? You do? Khaki. All right. What was the toughest word you think you had to spell? If you can't remember your last one. Boys?
But you got it now. There you go, buddy. That's awesome. Oh, a French word? Okay, well,
Bonsoir.
I'm
Parlez-vous
mad at
français?
English words, so I get it.
I'm still bitter at the word hemorrhage from 2001. It's been 25 years. I'm still not convinced I didn't spell it right. That's fine.
If it makes you feel any better, I still feel proud of remember having to spell 8 when I was in like third grade. So you guys are way, way ahead. Doing great stuff.
Okay, picture.
All right, perfect. Yep. So we can go ahead and do pictures. You guys are up here, so we'll do the spelling bee pictures first. So our board members and Dr. Trail would like to jump in, and I'll take one here in the middle. Then I promise I will get out of the way so you guys can get yours too.
Awesome. Right here in the middle of you all.
They're gonna take half a step.
Yeah, if it's telling you people, you have to take a step up and maybe squish in a little bit, act like you like each other here. We'll get you guys.
I'm sure you hold them right side up. You know what I mean?
Make me have to learn how to Photoshop them upside down. I'm gonna take a whole bunch right here in the middle first, guys. 1, 2, 3. Now I'm gonna get out of the way.
Yeah,
for-
don't worry, Barry. Scott will get out of the way. He knows the drill. If you didn't get my good side, you can take another one.
And you can also email me, I'm happy to send whatever I. Very good. All right, hey, do one more round of applause. You guys are here, we'll bring the robotics up, we'll do a picture here real quick.
Need to bring the robot.
Okay, which side is the good side of the robot?
Oh, right, the one with the eyeballs, definitely get the eyes out.
You have the ice on that.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. We'll intermingle it. There you go. So you might. Okay, please. Windows.
No.
I know, I don't know.
Perfect, I get everybody.
Are we okay? I was like, are we good?
That way. I'm gonna take a whole bunch. Perfect, thank you guys, great job.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Come on. Come on. Okay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Thank you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to show it, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to.
Sorry, I can remember, I can only remember one. Thank you. I told Bob about it. Oh, no. Hopefully good things. Hopefully good things. Good. Oh, good. Yes. Yeah, I do want to put him on the spot. Okay, this is the program manager. So did you learn about the time?
Yeah, I got you. We've got the two teams.
You got it.
Yeah. They straight, we go, way. Yeah. It's super fun. Yes.
So is there any team of how the next year reacts?
You
saw that the second time. I know. There was a reduction, there was some sound to it, but there was what I very much am seeing in miles. They let's see what a topographical. I am under the impression that this is involved. That was my thought.
Next finance.
Yes. This really heavily focused on manipulating objects outside of the less on.
The hardest part is.
This is all them. It's not good. Sit on my hands. It's not.
Start.
Which, and this is one player, there was one lot that was like half the size, but it's like thinner, and two guys on, like that one, like.
It doesn't get any more carbon than that.
Thank you. March 7th, so it's like relevant. We'll pick them down, well, take that stuff down as well. We are,
Obviously.
Well, good luck.
This kind of.
Got it? All right.
Googly
eyes on robots.
Hey, thanks for coming in and thanks for everything you do. 27. So they definitely.
Yeah.
And our program doesn't.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. No worries. They were just helping me. They use that AI.
No. Figure it out.
It's
That's how you learn.
I don't know. Well, I could use it.
The only thing you've ever allowed to use AI. Comments.
Okay, we'll go ahead and keep moving to the next item. RSP Spring Hill enrollment analysis.
Yes, every year we look forward to having RSP demographics come and present to us what our enrollment forecast might look like over the next several years. We've done this for more than 15 years, and they have been pretty accurate in terms of helping the district make sure they have a plan in place for the increased enrollment that we've seen. As you've heard me say many times, we have 27 years of consecutive increases in brick and mortar student enrollment. And so this evening, we have the representative from RSP. I know that normally you all have used to hearing Rob. Rob had another commitment. He may still, I think, join us if he is able, but you're in very good hands this evening with the individual that is present to go over the information. I know we gave that information to you in the board docs last week for you to review. There's a lot of information there. And we also put it in a 3-ring binder for you that you can take with you and refer to it as needed throughout the coming months. We also take this report and we also do upload it to our website under enrollment projections. So again, it's a very much a living document and does help us guide where we think we're going to have our needs in that facility wise, student wise, enrollment wise for teachers in that in the coming year. So I'll turn it over this time to RSP.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenna Wallace with RSP. I'm going to go over our 25-26 enrollment analysis for you all. Thank you for the great introduction, Dr. Luttrell. I've been with the company for about 4 years now. So Rob and I split a lot of these board meetings. He's in a virtual Zoom meeting tonight for a school district out in South Dakota. And so he said if it gets done quick, he'll pop in, but it was kind of a race to see who gets done first. But RSP, we've been working with you guys for quite some time. And so going through the report, I'll just more so try to speak to, what's different in this year's analysis? What are those key data points that lead into the update of that 5-year forecast? And so the report tonight, I'll skip through some slides, speak more to some other slides. The report's broken out into those 4 main parts. And so what's different with enrollment and demographics, what's different with housing outlook, and how do those inform those new projections? And so starting here with our executive summary, we have the district continuing to grow the next 5 years at about a 24% growth by 2030-31. That's pretty balanced between each of our grade levels, with the high school grades now becoming largest as we move through the system of that growth rate. And so we've been seeing some smaller classes graduate, larger classes coming in, creating more of a bottom and top growth level approach as we see more of that stabilization in our elementary grades. We'll talk a little bit about our capacity challenges, so some imbalance and some different potential challenges within the elementary buildings and how that can be potentially addressed with some different boundary conversations. And so getting into part 1 of the report, you have lots of maps in the report. We always start with our district boundary and city limits, as well as our attendance boundaries. So you have the current elementary boundary map and the current middle school boundary map and how those feed into each other. So a feeder diagram of how students move through the system between our different grade levels. The next part here just goes briefly into the RSP model. And so really what you need to take from these couple of slides is all of our data is tied down to the student ID. So knowing what type of household, what neighborhood, was it built in the 60s, was it built last year? All of the different geographic variables come down to that individual address. And that gives us the way to be very granular and get a sense of what's happening in every subdivision throughout the district. And so the forecasting models always included. So if you're a statistics person, this might mean something to you. If not, just knowing it's statistics, feeding it the best information and pushing out that most likely result there. The different variables work together almost like a lever. Some variables are leaning towards growth. Some variables limit the growth, and how those variables speak to one another is part of RSP's job to understand that language and produce that most likely forecast. And so one of the key slides that we always look at, which gives us a good sense of that kindergarten enrollment, is the birth rates. And so we have been seeing the past kind of 5 or so years that birth rate decrease. It's stabilized a bit more, but we know we are historically having less babies than what we had 10 years ago. And that's in both of our counties of the district. And so with the kind of continued lower birth rate per year, it creates a more of a challenge to have an increasing or stable kindergarten class. And so this year, with that slightly lower kindergarten number coming in, really correlating with that 5-year trend of 5 years ago, that birth rate slowing down. And so one way to offset this is that percentage along the top of what is your market share of the regional live births, and continuing to have 4 to 5% market share is going to be a way to offset that limitation and continue to see growth in those early grades. The next visual here goes into your past enrollment by grade. So lots of data on this slide and gives you a sense of where you guys were 20 years ago versus where you're at now. The district grew by about 2% from last year, and we are starting to see where those largest grades in the system are in those middle school cohorts. And so more of that exponential growth in the elementary has now moved their way into the middle school, which then creates that projection of moving into the high school and seeing greater growth in those upper grades, while we see a bit more of that stabilization in the elementary grades. We also track this with the trends of grade progression. So looking at as classes move from 8th to 9th grade or 1st to 2nd grade, what's the tendency to increase? And this gives you a sense of over time, what is those grade progression trends? That all informs the model as we look at what is the likelihood of next year's 7th grader or next grade or next year's 9th grade. These next couple of visuals go into really bringing those two theories together of your class sizes. And so the top visual gives you a sense of that average grade size in each of our grade bands and how it's been pretty parallel of this growth, pretty spread out, where it was kind of elementary was the smallest, you saw greater growth, it's moved into the middle school is now the largest. And as we're looking 5 years out, we're really converging all of our average class sizes around that 350 students per class. And so be creating better balance from the bottom to the top of the district system. And then the bottom visual really gets at one of the best rules of thumb when thinking about enrollment growth, as does my kindergarten class fully replace the exiting 12th grade class? And you get a natural boost of enrollment there. Historically, you can see with those red bars, you've tended to have that much larger kindergarten class than the exiting 12th grade class, giving you a very great foundation to see district-wide growth. As we're looking forward these next 5 years, we do forecast that that kindergarten number is going to come back up from where it was this year. But the difference between 12th grade and kindergarten becomes a little bit tighter. So just that same way to have that same percent growth year after year becomes a bit more challenging as you have 12th grade and kindergarten come closer together. It's one of the good challenges of being a growing district, that it's hard to sustain that same percent growth year after year. And so in the model, we also look at migration trend. And so looking at orange bars, the new students in, orange bars, past students that have left. We do see a net growth from this variable for the last 3 years, a little bit smaller of a net growth this year, but more of a just positive demographic trend as you're attracting and retaining more students than students leaving. We also look at out-of-district enrollment, and so this is pretty steady of about 100 to 115 students residing out of the district boundary. You can get a sense of if this demographic was shifting, that would inform the model, but this is a bit more stable and it's a good variable to look at. We also look at the geography of our district through the lens of student density. And so this map is a count change visual where we're looking at each of those neighborhoods in the district. Orange neighborhoods have been increasing, green has been decreasing. And so you can kind of get this almost gradient look of north part of the district has been tending to increase with some newer neighborhoods coming online versus we've seen more of a decreasing trend on the south part of the district. Each neighborhood is in their own cycle of their subdivision life cycle. And so getting a sense of where every neighborhood is at helps us inform what the next 5 years would look like in each of those neighborhoods. We couple this also with our student density. And so this visual giving you a sense of those hot pockets, the red areas being the points of the district that have the most students. You can see up on the north side, we have more of those hot pockets where there's a greater density of our students. And so that goes through part 1 of the report. You can see most of these variables here, indications of growth. Really the only limitation that we would want you guys to think about and focus on would be that birth rate and that kindergarten market share. Hoping to continue that 4% market share is going to be the way to offset that limitation and continue to see larger kindergarten classes than what we saw this year. And so moving into part 2 of the report, we look at how do these variables of population and housing inform our projections. And so this first visual is a correlation graphic. So looking at what's been happening with population, we've been seeing an increase of about 750 new people living in the district per year. Our building activities, that blue line. So also very steady building activity. We had a good stretch of about 500 units built per year. This year where we had that 25, 26, and it comes down a little bit, that's most likely due to just the delay of getting that building permit data through the county when we finalize the report. So we expect that to come back up closer to about 500 units. I just know that every year we kind of make sure that our past year is the most accurate there. But what we can see here is as we see more people and as we see more houses, that's correlating with more students in the district. We also get a sense of the yield rate. So how many students do your housing inventory typically generate? And this is broken down by our single family and our multifamily housing. And so we show this per 100 units to give you a sense of a whole number. And so you guys see about 45 to 50 students per 100 single family home. And the multifamily has been decreasing a little bit more, where you can see it's kind of been dipping to below 20 students per 100 multifamily home. So definitely generating more students from your single family inventory. We've been building a lot of both types of inventory, definitely more single family than multifamily, but that gives you a sense of new projects that might be coming online and how they have a different relationship with students in the district. We break down that same analysis by our different elementary boundaries. As you can see, over time, we do hold our boundaries stagnant. So it's this year's boundaries and apply to past data to get a sense of over time, our different boundaries yielding more students or yielding less students. You can see that outlined in each of our elementary boundaries, as well as where units have been built, and then how many potential units are on the horizon to be built in each boundary. All this information, we break it down by the households, and that tells us how many students we think is going to reside in each of those boundaries in the future. And so overall for your units inventory, you can see this broken down in each of our current elementary boundaries. We'll have Timber Sage having the most single family units in their boundary, Spring Hill Elementary having the most multifamily units. That's a bit more different between our boundaries, while the single family is a bit more balanced as we break that out in the district. And then we have a couple of maps that go through that housing outlook. This first visual is average year built. And so red areas being the newest units built in the district, blue being the older units. We correlate that with the median home value map. So trying to really focus on what is the overlap of new units being built as well as the affordability factor. These two variables really work really hand in hand when thinking about, is it likely generating new families? Is it desirable for new families moving into the district? And then we also have a more of a specific focus on the last 5 years of unit activity. And so, like I said, that 2025 we think is going to come closer up to 450 to 500. And so we're looking at really around that 500 units built per year. You can get a sense of really these clusters of dots of which developments, which subdivisions have been the most active these past 5 years. And then we get into, so what is the outlook for future growth? And so by touring the district as well as meeting with each of the city planning departments, we get a sense of what is on the horizon for current and active development. That's the green. And then what is on the horizon more for a 5 to 10 year timeline. And that is that yellow and purple. And so we have a lot of inventory in the pipeline to be built throughout the district. When we look at everything on that map and break it down to a table, we have identified over 14,600 total potential housing units to be built, with over 5,800 of those in those active and current stages. And so when we present this, you have to kind of have in the back of your mind that we build about 500 per year. And so even in the green, in that current and active, you have 5+ years of development activity in the pipeline identified with the cities. This next visual gives you a sense of how those potential housing units line up with our different boundaries. And so for the units that are in current and active development, Timber Sage and Dayton Creek have the most units. And then when you move into more of that long-term timeline, it fluctuates between Timber Sage and Wolf Creek Elementary having the greatest potential for that 5 to 10 year, that long-term outlook for development activity. And so then the last part of the report is we always do a just regional project spotlight. So a lot of exciting things that are happening in Johnson County and throughout the district. And so we know that job growth is going to continue to expand and that we have our different cities very focused on continuing their growth and providing those different livability projects that will continue to benefit of residents throughout the district. We also have included in the analysis the 2025 bond. And so that potential bond coming online with the different projects, you'll see these projects reflected in the projection tables as we talk about current and future capacity. And so part 2 of the report is the conclusions here. So you can see most of these variables, very similar indications of continued growth. The only limitation being that slightly lower yield rate. That's very common as you bring a lot of new houses online. The district is kind of finding their sweet spot of what those new units would generate in the district. And so getting into part 3 of the report, you have here the overall 5-year forecast. And so the past 10 years of student data and the projected next 5 years of data. And so we have the district growing by about 24% by 2030, 31. The elementary level increases by about 440 students, middle school by about 190, and high school by about 360. And so coming in when we analyzed last year's report to this year's report, coming in most of our grade levels aligning pretty well with what was projected. That kindergarten coming in a bit lower is what dropped that accuracy to about that 98.6 versus higher than that. So kindergarten really being a key variable of we want to analyze that and better understand that kindergarten roundup. And so next, what you have in the report is breaking those projections down by each of your buildings. And so you have really a lot of data on this slide. So you have all of your buildings and the capacity, which is the current capacity, and then the future capacity with our different building additions and bond projects. And you'll see that notated with the asterisk. And then moving forward, you have the previous 4 years of data and the projected next 5 years of data in each of the buildings. Our different colored shading here illustrates the utilization of that future capacity. So green would be under 70% of that capacity. So there is more room. There's availability to expand enrollment at those buildings. And then the lighter kind of pink shading would be over 100% of the past capacity, past as in the current, so right now. And then if it's the darker orange, that is going to be over that future capacity. And so when we broke this down by our projections, what we're highlighting here is we have some maybe potential challenges at the elementary level, looking in about year 4 to year 5. So the immediate balance right now is looking pretty good with those buildings, but it comes back to that earlier visual of where are the housing units coming online, and that really that first current and active housing developments being in 2 primary elementary schools, that feeding into those projections. And so you can see here Dayton Creek reaching over their future capacity starting in 2930, and then Timber Sage Elementary, similar, where they would be surpassing their building capacity around 2930 to 3031. Our middle schools are all seeming pretty well balanced within their current capacity, so no challenges forecasted there. You can see there on the bottom of the table for the Spring Hill High School, we bring on that new addition with the high school with the bond, and that really is well supported by the information. So the growth that's forecasted now at that high school level, without that addition, we'd be saying you guys are over capacity by 2027, 28. And so that new capacity, adding those different additions, give you guys that breathing room for these next 5 years of that projected enrollment. This next visual just gives you a sense of our different capacity and enrollments by total grade level. And so, like I said, with those elementary, we have 2 buildings that come close to those building capacities. But if you look at all of your elementary enrollment, you are below that total capacity. So there's breathing room in different buildings, and it's more of maybe some massaging of some attendance or some boundaries to better utilize that facility space throughout the district. You also have middle school, and then you can see in that bottom table for the green, that high school. As we bring on that new addition, that increases capacity and provides that greater utilization and efficiency of the high school building. To summarize and really kind of bring all this together, we put together a couple of different graphics here that go into that growth and change over these past 4 years. And so you can get a sense of we continue to build more units, and then we also continue to add more potential units. And so as we build 500 units per year, every time we meet with this city, there's more projects that are coming on the radar and continue to expand. And so we wanted to put this together of, 2022 to 2025 is we build more units, but we also build more into the pipeline. And so that's continued to influence those long-term enrollment projections. The other thing I think that speaks to me with these visuals is all of these are leaning towards that growth, really except that live birth rate. And that's a demographic trend that we really focus on, as it's not something we can necessarily fix or change, but it's something that we just want to monitor. And so it's a demographic trend that we're seeing statewide and nationwide. And so just continue to monitor that live birth rate trend and how that would correlate to kindergarten students in your classes. And that goes through part 3 of the report. So we're just breaking down some of these other final conclusions. When you're looking by 2030, 31, it's that high school that is the tightest of utilization. And so even with that building addition coming online, we're looking at about a 94% utilization of our high school building by 2030. And so moving into next steps here, we always really promote those next steps of continuing to review and update projections. And so every year we find new ways to understand data and make sure everything is the most accurate and best known information. So continue to do that, as well as use this as the tool that it's meant to be and really layer it into your different facility planning conversations. And so with that, what questions do you guys have? I know it's a lot of information, so if there's anything that I need to go back to and explain more, or just kind of notate for our team to really dive in deeper, do that.
Hey, Jenna, sorry, I'm terrible.
No, you're good.
Thank you for being with us tonight. The one thing on page 41 and the high school capacity, the future capacity number, and I don't know if Mr. Williams wants to add in this. I don't remember that delta being 330 seats added. This number, yeah, it's 200. Yeah, 200. So I'm just wondering if we could just review those future values and double check them and reissue as appropriate.
Yes, that sounds great. We'll make sure we get that number lined up with what's correct.
Okay, perfect. And then, one of the things that I follow really weird rabbit holes sometimes in life, and Miami County just redistricted our commissioner seats, and that made me think about us. And I looked in, and we have this obligation to redraw our districts at a 5% population change. And this is the third time I've heard this presentation. So we've been growing a lot, and nobody's been like, hey, you need to do redistricting. So kind of my question is, hey, do we need to do redistricting?
You might. That's something that we do for school districts. And so getting a sense of the 2020 census that we would use, we would look at the population of current people, and if you're within 5% variance, if not, we would then propose some different school board district adjustments of what would move you into that.
Yeah, so I think the question I would ask, because again, board docs not being the greatest repository, the last time I saw that it happened, RSP did it in 2007. Could you all check your records and let us know the last time you helped us out with that?
I can definitely do that. I don't know what year it was, but we can go back and look at that.
I'm not trying to trip off something that doesn't need to happen, but I also don't want to be asleep at the switch that we should have done something and we didn't.
For sure.
So if there's any help that you could give us there, I would appreciate that as well. And then my next question was actually around understanding the proposed boundary changes. So I guess page 47.
Yes.
Could you kind of, so these are the proposed boundary changes?
These
So
were, yeah, we put these together as kind of that next steps discussion piece. We've identified kind of that imbalance where we have some challenges forecasted at the elementary level. And then when we were looking at this and working with your team of maybe what is some potential areas that if you guys wanted to go down that pathway that we were prepared to talk about. And so for this map here, you'll see we've outlined 4 different areas. And so the 2 that are labeled the PC would be potential timber sage adjustments that would move from timber sage to Prairie Creek. It'd be a way to balance between those 2 schools. This would keep them within the same middle school feeder.
okay, so they're annexations to, so PC being Prairie Creek, DC being, so annexations over. Because that's what was confusing me, because Dayton Creek's already in yellow, but DC1 and DC1 are already in yellow. I'm
Yes.
confused by the colors.
Yes,
Do
the
you get why I'm
DC,
confused?
yes, it really should be to kind of match that methodology WC. It would be from Dayton Creek to Wolf Creek.
Okay, so
Yes.
those are WCs, not DC.
Yeah, that would be a bit better to label those. So it would be potential changes to move from Dayton Creek into Wolf Creek.
Now I understand what you're telling me.
Yes. And we highlighted these 2 areas because they would fall within that same middle school feeder. And so by isolating those 2, it would be more of that minimal adjustment, low impact on students that you could really trickle in as they move throughout the grades instead of a comprehensive boundary adjustment between different grade levels. And so it was just a starting point really to maybe get the wheels turning a little bit of when you're thinking about capacity challenges, you have capacity district-wide to relieve those if that's something that you wanted to go through. It would take some impact on some students, but it could be more phased in and targeted. That might be a bit more palatable.
Do you have the like the numbers you gave us towards the end of the presentation showed timber sage, kind of over capacity in 4 years or 5. Yeah, that one. So if we were to do this, is there a chart like this for that? No. Okay.
We don't have that yet, but that's something that we could provide if that's a route that you guys wanted to take a look at.
Yeah. I know in that, at least in that PC number 1 box, I know some people that live over there and, they drive by like 3 different elementary schools to get to Timber Sage. So, I mean, I like to think that they would probably be on board for that, but I just want to make sure, I'd like to see the numbers there to see if that would kind of help those projections in the 2029, 30 school year. So we're not adding.
It's interesting, Anna, that PC1, I know for a fact because my 5th grader, PC1, when he was in kindergarten, those students went to Prairie Creek.
Right.
So it was after kindergarten that they then had to drive by Prairie Creek to get to Timber Sage.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But these areas also kind of correlate where we're seeing kind of the heat map of new growth. And so it's kind of hey, if we make this decision sooner, I'm reading into this. If we make this decision sooner rather than later, expectations can be set and aligned with the least amount of consternation
Yes.
to the district. Is that what we're saying?
Areas, kind of come from that growth area map. So there may be some developments that are targeted to start. Not saying that there's not students in those blocks, but there is some more of those active developments that if you were to adjust them now could give you greater relief in the future years, but really doing that before impacting existing subdivisions that have a lot more of those current students. So it's kind of just a different way to think about if you adjust those growth areas in the now to give you that longer term balance.
And then the other thing above PC1 at 167th and Woodland, is that a commercial development there? Is that why you haven't included it in there as moving over from Timber Sage Spray Creek?
Yes, it was more just to kind of go all the way over to the railroad and the next road as a complete block.
The question I'm asking is, why aren't you going north from 167th and just including that in PC?
Yes, that is commercial, but it could be concluded too. That could be something that you look at.
I would just do it that way just so people don't get confused by the colors, quite honestly.
That's fair.
As you can tell, I'm easily confused.
And if we were to do that, okay, sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. So if we were to do that, we're not going to put Prairie Creek and Wolf Creek. Wait, are those ones moving to Wolf Creek? You said
No, those DCs are WCs.
so those kids
They are
would go
going to Wolf Creek
they
now.
would
Right.
they
Yeah,
go to Wolf
Boulder.
Creek.
Boulders are off.
Oh,
See, okay,
They do go to Dayton.
Yeah.
They do go to Dayton Creek.
they go to Dayton now.
they go to Dayton now.
That's my neighborhood.
That's Boulder Spring?
No.
Maple Ridge. Okay.
This side.
Okay, I understand. So
Yeah, no, I get that.
make sure that we wouldn't be putting then Prairie Creek in the same position that Timber Sage would be at, and Dayton Creek would, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
So-
And that's what that full analysis would really get into. This
Yeah.
is just kind of a demonstration of
Okay.
you guys could look at massaging those boundaries in different strategic places and to solve that 5-year outlook within the existing inventory.
Yeah.
I think, Anna, you're definitely showing the need that we need to have a lengthier discussion on this.
Yeah.
You guys are pointing out these issues. One of the ones that I notice is a very frequent complaint amongst our families south of 223rd is they do go all the way up to Wolf Creek instead of Shees. And then there are some of the ones, as we were discussing, that get split when they go to middle school. So I think when we look at this, well, of course, there's 3 middle schools and 4 elementary schools. That math is never going to work. We can align it a little bit better with the middle schools as well to ease that transition period. I think kind of the suggestion I wanted to make, and this is really to the board, to something to think about. Maybe you can chime in with your experience, but do you see at times, I don't know the best way to phrase this without making it confusing, but it's going to be confusing maybe. Basically 2 different boundary maps where one would apply to new families moving in, not necessarily new construction, but new residents to the district, and one for our existing families to try and minimize the disruption of families going from one school to another, back to another school, where potentially, like using my example, a family that moves in, 2 summers from now, south of 223rd, they would go to Shees instead of going to Wolf Creek in the beginning, but we wouldn't disrupt anybody. And then when we're looking at your projections right here, that kind of say, what, maybe in 4 years, we have to make a decision. If you're putting in that transition plan now, we've probably disrupted far less than we would if we did it all at once then.
Yeah, we definitely have done that in similar districts. And so kind of like it's like a phased in boundary adjustment where you focus in on if you're an existing student, you stay, but new students come in. Some of the nuances that get a little tricky is thinking about like siblings or transportation. So there's definitely some more depth that you would want to consider, but we definitely see that in a lot of districts to minimize that impact and focus in on existing students aren't impacted, and you try to really give yourself more of that breathing room in future years by phasing in the change.
I think transportation is probably a decent concern in that one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any more?
Okay, so on the middle school, sorry, April. So on the middle school boundary map, the next one, yeah. So I just want to make sure. So what you're showing here is if we were to make those adjustments, those kids would still go to the same middle school they're
Correct.
already going to.
Yep,
That-
just to illustrate that you're within that same feeder, that it would be more of an impact only on elementary boundaries and not the middle schools.
Okay.
And so really, I want to stress that these maps are just for like an illustrative purpose and more so to use this as the tool it can be. So we can have all this data. We know how many students are in each of our subdivisions. If you guys are going down that route, we're able to step in and give you guys some solid data to make those different discussions.
So it sounds like that's the next step we want to dive into is boundary adjustments, right? Dr. Luttrell, is that something you can
Yes.
add
I
into
think-
your list of to-dos?
Yes, I think it would be wise to task myself, Dr. Robinson, Mr. Holder, Mr. Williams, the executive cabinet to work with RSP on coming up with some possibilities so that we can be proactive and continue addressing our growth with the least amount of pain on our patrons. And I do like the fact that hopefully we can come up with a solution that not only will, if someone is impacted, they're only impacted one time as opposed to not only having to maybe change in elementary, but then change in middle school as well. And so I think if tasking us with that to bring back at a future time here, the next 3 to 6 months to look at would definitely be a positive.
I
So
think that would-
there's three things in that. Building number review and reissue, that review, and do we need to reboundary draw as well?
For district, for board.
For board,
Yeah.
board districts.
Yeah.
So those are the three things.
Yep,
So, okay.
you got it. Okay, is that it? Anything else? Okay, thank you so much for coming out.
Absolutely. If you guys have
Appreciate
any other questions, just reach out and we'll be
Okay.
to help.
Will
You
do.
tell Rob we missed him.
Okay, I will.
Thank you, Dr. Jenna. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, 8.02 bond update.
And we have our bond update and we have Mr. Williams and Mr. Delphia.
Hi, good evening. So we're growing, so we're building. So I'm here to give you our February bond update of where we stand. A lot of it you'll see in the presentation has just changed because of pictures and everything. I would like to start out with the overall budget. This is where we were currently standing at the end of January. We'll get the numbers here towards the beginning of first part of March where we stand at the end of February with that. As you can see, out of our $60 million bond budget, we have 28 million, a little over 28,500,000 spoken for with the projects. The HVAC number has gone up. That includes the electrical that you guys approved at the last board meeting. So everything is set for the elementary additions. The roofs at Spring Hill Elementary School, Spring Hill Middle School, and then the HVAC improvements. And I will speak a little bit later about this, but Newkirk Novak currently has detailed designs from DLR when it comes to the high school CTE and Commons Edition. I expect in March we'll get a pretty solid estimate of what it's going to cost to build what we have projected right now for the high school CTE Edition and the Commons expansion. The next slide is our contingency budget summary. This has not really changed that much since the last time I showed you, except we've added some money into our contingency. After looking at the plans, and I misspelled a word, and I completely apologized. SYNC does not have an E at the end of it, so I am sorry about that. We'll get that fixed. Look at the plans, talking to Mrs. Endicott and the teacher, there was a classroom that included a sink. That was not needed anymore, so removing that from the blueprints, and that was in the original bid for that, we were able to add a little bit, 10,000 over, and I can see I have numbers misspelled. I completely apologize about that. 10,000 added to our contingency, so we're back over 500,000 for our contingency for elementary projects. With that, you will also notice down below, when we were talking about that building responder system, we had 2 schools that did not meet the first respondents system, and that was Prairie Creek and Timber Sage. So right now we have $3,000 going to the design to make sure we develop the system that's appropriate for those 2 schools, utilized for the 300,000 on that. So you can see with the 400,000 for the building responder system and tariff costs, we're now down to $396,535. So overall bond budget, we are still below our estimates of where we're coming in at. Contingency, we're still sitting pretty good with our contingency that we have when it comes to our elementary additions. With that, I would imagine in March, I'll be coming back to you. There's a couple items that are being reviewed right now by DLR and Newkirk. There'll be some additions on the contingency budget that we'll be able to explain a little bit to you guys at the next time we go over bond in March. The elementary additions, and I'm going to start off by saying, first of all, we are working closely with Newkirk and Novak and Dr. Luttrell and Dr. Robinson and coming up a date to get you guys to take a tour of it. Right now, I think we're leaning towards that you guys have a work session the first Monday of April. We feel like the buildings will be enclosed and there might be actually some framing on the inside for you guys to actually see and take a tour with that. So we are planning on that Monday, getting you guys out there. We'll send out a formal invitation. We'll get everything lined up so we can get you into the 3 elementary additions. Spring Hill Elementary is coming along very well. They have all the structural steel placed in place, all the exterior framing done. This week they're working on the ductwork and interior framing when it comes to Spring Hill Elementary School. So it looks really good from the road. It looks even better when you start going inside of it. And then when you start actually seeing the size of the classrooms, we'll be even more impressive with that. I will be glad to say at all 3 elementary sites, we have had no injuries. So that's always a good thing too. Prairie Creek Elementary. So the structural steel has gone up. We had our topping off ceremony this afternoon, and thanks to Mr. Hall for attending to that. We have had a little bit of a delay. The joists that were delivered last week were the wrong size. So they have been returned and the new joists are being delivered this week. They should be coming in on the 25th. So, or even tomorrow, so we can start getting that installed and taken care of with that. The crane's back out there. So they are wanting to get the joists installed and get those completed at the end of this week. So then you'll start seeing following week, hopefully some exterior structure taking place and then get those working on with that. And then Timber Sage. So Timber Sage actually has the structural steel process going on. We did have our topping out party last Thursday, and thanks to Mrs. Baker for coming out and joining us for that. So they have all the structural steel in place and they're working on the joists and getting that stuff and take care. So we're hoping to get some good progress on Timber Sage by the end of this week. We've had some really good weather to get them moving on with that. So you can obviously see where we're at. You can obviously tell that Spring Hill Elementary School was a few weeks ahead of Prairie Creek and Timber Sage. But even by the delay that we had from our permits, I think that Prairie Creek and Timber Sage are making great progress, and we are told they're still right on time and progress with that. And so working on this topping out ceremonies for each one, I was asked today about Spring Hill Elementary School. That was one that we had to videotape because it's during that week that we had actually no school because of the really cold temperatures. So they do have a video, and we have a video to be able to show with Timber Sage and Prairie Creek. Chris Olson came out and took some video for us. So we'll have video for the 3 elementary additions when it comes to that. So moving on to the high school, you will see that right now that is still one of the designs that we talked to you about at one of our last meetings. Kylie and I have the full design developments of the CT edition, the Commons edition. If you would like to come by and see them, I'd be glad to share them with you. I was trying to figure out how I can email them to you, but they say the file's so large, it won't send any email. The paper is really heavy. And so we're combing through some of that stuff. We're working on some of the finer details. We'll have an interiors meeting this week with the interior designers and the high school staff and their teachers talking about their classrooms and the hallways and getting things taken care of with that. Like I also mentioned, they have completed some detailed plans to sit to Newkirk Novak. That was at the end of last week. So they are working on a pretty good estimate for us to get to us in March. One thing, working with Mr. Holder, Dr. Luttrell, Dr. Robinson, Dr. Smith, and myself, we are working on our bond transparency site. We will have a detailed budget on there for people to see where we are and making sure that we are responsible for the money. It will outline very much what we have on the first page. And then we will actually show them up to current date, how much we have spent on that current project. So they'll be able to see that. So we are finalizing some of those numbers and getting the sign off. And I just presented that just this morning to Dr. Luttrell and Dr. Robson and Dr. Smith and Mr. Holder. And once we feel like we're in the right spot, we'll get that put on our district website so people understand where we're at fiscally on our bond projects. So any questions?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, security camera archiver refresh.
We have Mr. Terry going to talk to us about a couple items that deal with the inner workings of the department that mainly are resources and equipment that are impacted simply by the fact that we're continuing to do more, need more space, and some of the products that are serving us now do have some age to them, and we're at the point where we need to upgrade them. So he's going to give us that insight.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me here. This was not one of the things I was planning on coming up to do this year. Our Stream Vault server, which is our security archiver, it's where all the camera footage is stored, was due for a refresh this year, but it's usually within the realm of not having to come up here. But unfortunately, we ran into we solved an issue, which was great, but put us in a pickle because sometimes ignorance is bliss. And so, unfortunately, the only witness here would be our security resource officer that's here in the room with us. But there's been some times where footage was missing. And for you guys that don't know, these cameras are set up to record on motion. They're not recording 24/7. That would require way more archival space than we have. But there was some times where we were missing footage and we could never pin it down. Over the summer, we really dug down in and figured out what was actually happening. And long story short, the server that we have that's holding all this archival footage is really being taxed. And so what would happen is the service would crash, recover itself, but anything that happened during that time was missing. And so we worked on putting together a new solution, which gives us a little more redundancy, gives us a little more recoverability options should we ever need that. And that's the proposal I put in front of you. There is a lot of stuff in here. I'm not going to get into tech nerd stuff. Anybody that wants to read it can. I'll get down to probably what y'all want to see, and that's the pricing. Down here. So I have three options here that we put. One of them, the very bottom one, I didn't even get a quote because it would probably fall under the $20,000 mark. If we went that way, it would pretty much leave us in the same spot we are now with better hardware. I can't tell you what would happen when we put just our existing cameras on there, not accounting for any growth that we want to do. The option two splits that between two servers and gives us a little bit of geographic disparity because we could put them at two different locations, which would give us the bandwidth and the processing power and the storage to handle all that. And then, of course, the option one gives us, of course, a higher price point, gives us two bigger servers that can actually back each other up. So basically, we would have two servers and archival footage would be streamed between them overnight and at different points throughout the day so that if one failed, we wouldn't lose all the footage that was on the other one. And some people could ask, do we ever need that? Well, the only argument I could say was, if a building burned down, in this case, if the high school burned down, we wouldn't have footage of what burned it down because it would have burned up in the fire. I can justify either one. It is an expense. It is about $11,000 more than the second option, which is probably the bare minimum that we could get by with, knowing what we know now. But that's why I went ahead and gave you all the option one, which is actually what I'm recommending. It's not something, again, that I plan to do this year, but knowing what we know now, it is the recommendation I can make and feel and sleep at night.
Billy.
Yeah.
So now you're delving into a little bit of my area of work here, right? So how many profiles, what type of profiles are you actually storing? What is the bit rate of the store of the profiles? Is it a single profile?
Oh, no, every camera has been adjusted over the years for their view. And so I'll back up just a little bit to you, since you're.
I'm not an expert.
Yeah, me either. But I will tell you, anybody that's done with digital audio or video knows that it's about 10% tech and about 90% art.
Yeah.
Because it's all about trying to find that middle ground that you're not using so much space, but you don't lose any quality. And it's in there. So every camera over the years, we have some cameras that have been running for 15 years or more. I'm pretty sure the high school has most of its original cameras in there, which does speak to the quality of the product that we buy, which another topic for future discussion. But there's so many different bit rates. There's so many different angles, multi-headed cameras. When you talk about motion detection, anybody that's had a Ring camera at their house, you can draw squares on what you want it to detect and maybe block out the road where the cars are all driving by all the time. We do the same thing. So there's a lot of science to it all or art to it all to get it to work the way it does now. And I honestly believe it could be better than what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Diminishing returns at some point of optimization, right?
Right.
But when kind of my concern in this, and you kind of raised the point, which is quite a few of our cameras have resolution that we would like to see upgraded, probably in the not too distant future, based on some of our past discussions. So my real question is, are you buying enough? If we start putting in much higher resolution, 4K cameras, or not that we're going to install 4K cameras, but whatever we get is going to be at least double the resolution of some of the existing things. I think we can all concede.
Again, going back.
Is this accommodate for that?
So going back to what I said, it is a lot of an art, right, to get it to where you want it. 4K we would probably never need, except for maybe some of those big PTZs that we have that cover parking lots and stuff that need to zoom in a lot better than standard hallway cameras or whatever. I do believe so. And one of the beauties of kind of splitting our system up the way I'm suggesting now is that not only do we have a little bit better redundancy and backup options, we could replace them in the future on different cycles. So it's not such a big cost. Like we could do one 5-year and then the 6-year, the next one, and then they'd be a 5-year rotation every year after that, or whatever that turns out to be. We'll gauge that as the hardware, we'll just gauge it, how it's doing after 5 years. But that being said, you could do the same thing. You could, with these chassis, you could add more hard storage if needed, or if a few years down the road, we're adding more cameras, better quality cameras, we replace one, let it have more storage than the other until it becomes time to replace them. It gives us a lot more flexibility, which is anybody that's talked to me knows that's my goal of what I have in store for the department in general, is giving us a lot more agility to have some options as the district fluctuates, grows in areas, stagnates in others, whatever, but we'll have options.
Semper Gumby.
Okay, anything else? Very good. Okay, well, thank you so much for that one. I believe you probably have the next one too, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Network firewall replacement.
Yeah, and this is just a standard replacement. Our firewall is our frontline defense for our school's network. All traffic goes through it. It does threat detection, it does intrusion prevention, it does encryption, decryption, that kind of stuff. allows us to do our connect other devices, and it is a backup for our content filter. So at the very least, if we have kind of two things, a lot of phishing attempts come from legitimate sites, and sometimes the content filter won't catch that because it's a legitimate site. This happens a lot where, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but some school districts that don't have the resources we have haven't done things like even implement 2FA. And so our secretaries in schools will get phishing attempts from legitimate email addresses. And if the link in there goes to a very suspicious site, this guy will catch it. So, I mean, it's a very key part of our security structure. This thing is bid out. It's something we do every year because we've kept it on every 5 years, because we kept it on a 5-year rotation. We don't have redundancy or anything like that. It's just one device. We always ask for a pretty high level SLA. So we have a 24/7, 4-hour SLA with that device, meaning if something fails, we shouldn't be down more than 4 hours. And that would be, our internet would stop working at that point, right? And so because it's part of the internet structure, we were able to bid it out through E-rate, which is a government fund that helps pay for internet related devices in schools and libraries. And so we do get about a 50% return on the eligible cost, which they're estimating is $12,000 out of the 24,000. And so we might get $6,000 or $7,000 back on that device. But these are the bids. As you can see, the winning bid was lowest by far. It's this guy here. It's a total. It actually comes out to 20, whatever it was, 27. I have it on the other one.
Yeah, Billy, I'm sure you're seeing it just like we're seeing it, right? I mean, server costs and everything are going through the roof, lead times, all of that, right?
Everything.
So my recommendation would be if you got a wish list of things that you need, sooner is better.
Oh, yes, sir.
From a pricing standpoint, and what are they telling you as far as lead times? Because we're about 6 weeks out now on what used to be 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, luckily these devices are ready. They're stateside. So these we're not worried about. There are some future objects that we'll need to get in front of you guys a lot faster than I thought because of what you just said. Price fluctuates on a day-to-day basis. It's not nearly as bad as at the beginning or, back during COVID or those times where some things you just didn't know what was going to happen day to day, but it is something you got to worry about. Some of the major vendors, I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but sorry, but some of the major vendors of RAM, of memory for devices that have left the market because they're left the consumer market to just serve data centers. And so it's making it harder to get consumer devices like these, CPU, RAM, everything. So yeah, well aware. But that's just the device, and any questions, be glad to ask or answer.
Any questions? Very good. Okay, great. Moving on to 8.05 district fee.
Mr. Holder will come and tell you about our fee recommendations for our school year that will commence in 26-27.
Good evening, everyone. This is an annual exercise that we go through generally in February, sometimes in March. But these are related to district fees, and there are 7 here listed on the sheet, and each of them has its own nuance, so to speak. So I'll just take a brief amount of time and really go through each one and give the rationale as to why you see what is in front of you. So starting off with instructional fees, you'll notice that has been a flat rate of $95 for the last 3 years. We are recommending to extend that to a 4th year. Really, their instructional fee, which is, used to be known as the textbook fund, and it is still used to buy sometimes actual textbooks. It is a fund that is supported almost generally through fees that we collect out of this. You can transfer from the general fund, but what we try to do is get in a situation where we are not having to transfer. This fund has a balance in it of about $210,000 presently. Now, we will spend some of that as we go from now through June. We won't take in much revenue. We'll get a little bit here and there with some delinquent fees. But we feel like, that's a fund that we're not looking to build a huge fund balance in, because that means we're charging, our families too much, but yet we don't want it to go below zero. So we monitor it. Could we come back next year and ask for it to go up to 105? Possible. But we feel comfortable leaving that at 95 for this coming year. Preschool, and talking to Ms. Fanning, we did look at, or we're asking to increase that fee. This is a monthly fee from $200 to $220 a month. You'll notice that it did go up last year, and last year it was mentioned as well that this is one that will probably, although we may not go up $20 a month every year, I don't think we will. It is one that we may consistently slightly raise. As we look at other models that are in our area, we are still one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest, for a full day preschool. Now, keep in mind, these spots are full pay. There were 40 of those this year and that encompasses about a little over 25% of our preschool population fits into this category. Breakfast and lunch fees, we are recommending those stay the same. We took a pretty big jump last year, 10 cents for breakfast, 20 cents for lunch. Typically, our pattern has been when we increase that much, we will hold for a year. Food service is one of those areas that, we are concentrating on. It's a very difficult area to break even in, but we are making progress there. Just for your own knowledge, what does 20 cents bring? Well, if we serve the exact same amount of paid meals, a 20-cent increase would be about $65,000. So obviously that's something, but in the realm of $3 million of expenditures, you're not going to move the needle there a whole lot unless you do an increase that would cause a different reaction, right? Because it's a balance. You want kids to eat. You want full paid kids to pay for either the breakfast or lunch. And so it's something that we feel comfortable leaving the same next year. Milk fees, we are recommending a nickel increase there, really just to keep up with the price. Our milk pricing, and this is for extra milk, all right? So for context here, when you buy a lunch at the school, it comes with the milk, and that's part of the price, like $3 for an elementary student, a milk is part of that. This would be for an extra milk or additional milk. So district-wide last year, we sold 10,163 of those, all right? So not many in the grand scheme of things. So this nickel is about a $500 increase. However, our milk fees are, they do have an escalator that can go up or down depending on market prices. And so we feel like it is warranted for next year. I will mention that with breakfast, lunch fees, and milk fees, we do look at our peers, not only in Johnson County, but in Miami County. And we are, in a good spot there. We are not the lowest in all, but we are closer to low than we are to high. And so again, it's a balance between trying to make sure we have an appropriate amount of revenue with also not making it to where people don't want to buy breakfast or lunch. The pay to ride fees, we have followed a pattern there. Our contract right now is a 4% increase. And so for pay to ride, we have followed that pattern of 4%. We use round numbers, so it's not going to be exactly 4%, but you can see that increase as it goes across. And then finally, driver's education. This is a fee that's been the same for 10 years. But as we look at the fund balance there, again, this is not an area that we're really looking to build a huge fund balance in. This fund balance has been about break even In fact, it's gone up a little bit the last 2 years. And so, this is a valuable service. We want our kids to be able to participate in driver's ed. At least I think it's a valuable service for them. And so I think leaving that fee consistent is a good thing that we can do that. Any questions on the fee recommendations? Again, this is a discussion item, so it will come back as an action item at our next meeting.
Just one quick question from me. How many extra milks did you say were sold a year?
10,163.
10. Okay, I missed the 10. Gotcha.
Well, and how many of those did you pay for?
Well, no, Nathan, and I was going to ask, and JC may know the number right off the top of her head, but aren't we at like 400,000 units for the year? So, I mean, you're talking as a percentage, it's minuscule.
Yes.
Minuscule. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, but with the addition, and I'll go ahead and I'd ask the question, but with the addition of whole milk coming down the pike, I know that's not decided yet, but just to be aware, I anticipate our milk cost is going to rise as that demand is opened up to the market. So,
yeah, talking to Mrs. Dalton, yeah, it will go up, but even if it does, part of this, obviously the nickel will help that. If it's something that does become, a year over year expense, then we might.
Yeah, we'll adjust. That was more of a comment to the world at large, which is be prepared. Next year we may be passing through more on the preschool. So we're doing about a 10% bump, but that's only on really affects the 25 full pay. Were we adding more seats next year or were we holding steady on,
We added a staff person
this year?
Current year. There is not a plan at the moment to add another one for next year. Is my understanding that we did increase, but there's still some small amount of room to continue to increase with the staff that we have.
Okay.
Any other questions? I appreciate you knowing exactly how many extra milks were sold this year. So
I have to give credit to Ms.
that's pretty impressive, y'all.
Now, if all of those milks were stacked on top of each other, would they be as tall as the Statue of Liberty?
Can we get the robotics team in here for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Up next. John, he's good. 8.06, Summer Projects Expense Report. Kylie.
Yeah, so I have a summer projects expense report here. And it lists out all the summer projects that we discussed the last board meeting. You'll see there's 3 numbers in current estimates, which is Prairie Creek's elementary school's playground. And then the 2 new ones here, Spring Hill High School fire panel, and then the Spring Hill High School track surfacing. So what I will do, I will keep you updated on this whenever I bring another project that needs approval. I'll have this with it. And then I will, matter of fact, I'll just have this with every summer projects report I do in the future. I'll have this listed out. That way everybody can clearly see what's being spent and it's buyout status. So
the only comment / question I have is the 440 for Prairie Creek.
Yes.
Half of that's FY 25-26 and half of that is FY 26-27. Mr. Holder ran away, probably wisely so. Okay.
Yeah, and to that point, can you add a column that shows what is 25-26 spending and what's 26-27?
I can do that.
I was thinking the same thing.
That's easy enough.
Did you hear that, Mr. Holder? We were just asking to get some help on splitting out these numbers between fiscal year if they're being split out.
Yeah, and then Ted, you were going down the line. I thought you were going to hit it too. The one thing I'd like, if we could, Kylie, is just indicate the ones that have already been signed off on, approved. Just, and that way we can use it as a punch list.
Okay. Yep. Easy enough.
I love this. Thank you so much for putting this together. This
Yeah, you're welcome. Easy enough. Yep.
makes it easy to have one spot.
And then also attached on this spreadsheet is the quotes for the fire alarm system that I received 3 of them. And then I'm asking the board to go with control service companies. They had the lowest bid on there. And then for the track resurfacing, we went through TIPS cooperative purchasing contract that ensures we're getting the best price from a reputable sub. And I'm asking the board to approve that as well. So.
And those we have later this evening, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So I think I just noticed on that, it says the useful life is 5 to 7 years, but it is the same surface that we have now. And I think you said we're 9 years old.
Yes.
On the
So
current.
it'll probably be more than that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think they're very conservative on their
Or they
useful
just want you
life.
to replace it more often.
Yep. There you go. That could be that too. So.
Do we expect the same lifespan out of the middle school tracks? I imagine it's more UV wear than anything, right?
Yeah, it's some UV wear, but it's actually the use of it as well. So I expect it to be the same, and it is included in our facility master plan, which you will see something on that probably fairly soon, which goes out years ahead. So all that's being accounted for middle schools amongst a whole lot of other things. So.
I get a little nervous, not because I don't trust that you have a very thorough plan put together, but when I see some of these larger ones and when we just don't know what school funding looks like a year and a half from now, I just start to wonder on some of these. A year from now, do we wish we didn't spend the money because we're forced into cuts by the state? And are there any of these that aren't absolutely required this year that could be put off till a year from now when we have a little bit more clarity on what that looks like? So, and I say that knowing that, I made some comments on the sound system 2 weeks ago, right? That we've all seen like that one has to happen soon.
Right. Yeah.
So those are my thoughts.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Anything else? Okay. Thank you so much. 9.01 finance report, Mr. Holder.
All right, in front of you, you have our revenue and expense report through January 31st. So that is 7/12, or just over 58% of our fiscal year is complete. And you'll notice as you look at our revenues there, some of those lines have increased substantially from December to January in terms of dollar amounts. And that's because we receive some of our local tax revenue in January. We actually receive our largest chunk in June, which is odd to me, but because it's the last month of our fiscal year. But really, some of the larger chunks will come in June. But we have seen that go up. And so just for frame of reference, in our operating fund and general and LOB, and this is primarily an LOB, last month, we were at 20 million, and that was through 6 months of the year. We jumped up to 27. So over a 33% increase in revenue in that fund, or in those 2 funds alone. Special ed didn't go up that much. We did receive a little bit of local effort in January, but it is a fund that's not impacted by local tax collection. The next 2, however, are. If you look at our debt service, we were just over 5.3 million in debt service in December, and as you can see, up to over 12 million. And then same with the capital outlay. We just had 748,000 in capital outlay at the end of December. That jumped up to 3.46. I will say, with capital outlay, and certainly a concern of, state funding is always something that is top of mind. I do think with capital outlay, at least with that fund, because we levy there, We do receive some state aid on top of that, but the large majority of that fund is generated through that 8 mills that we have. So in terms of consistency, I do think it is one of our more reliable funds, and that obviously increases as assessed valuation goes up. So, and as you can see there on the report, I think we're in a pretty good spot right now as it relates to capital outlay. Bond revenue, really, full speed ahead there. We're in good shape. As I mentioned, I think in March, we won't hit it next month, but in March, we'll go over that revenue projection. So those are all dollars that we can use in the future for bond projects, which is a good thing. Nutrition services there. And just remember with revenue and expense, and I know I've said this before, but I think it helps to reiterate it. When we look at comparisons to prior year, I am using actual expenses at the end of the year. And so, you see our revenues are a little bit lower than we were at this time last year. That's because I'm using the estimate that the state's providing right now, which we know will be a little bit lower. Same thing with expenses. I'm comparing expenses to what we estimate it to be, but we know it will come in a little bit lower. So it kind of has the reverse effect. The nice thing is next year it will be apples to apples because I will just take the exact percentages that we were at this year, and it's going to be a much more linear comparison that should benefit us. That being said, nutrition services. So you see there, our revenue is on a percentage basis looks like we're down a little bit, but on a dollar basis, we're actually up $80 million. Last year we were about 1.38 million in revenue through January in food service, and we're up to 1.46 at this point. Going down to expenses, so you look at expenses out of the nutrition services fund, the 1.539. Last year we were at 1.516. So expenses have only risen 23,000. Revenues increased 80. So again, big picture. I know when you look at those percentages, our expenses are down compared to last year, but remember, we're taking that as compared to actual, same thing with revenue. So I just want to be able to look at it, okay, dollar for dollar, where are we at? And I think that's a good comparison moving forward. And I'll bring that back, as we go towards June. I think it'll be helpful to look at that dollar amount, not just percentage. Special Reserve Fund, we continue to do very well. Just received our January claims report. We were at 91%, which is okay. I mean, as long as you're less than 100, you're doing fine. That was a little bit high for January, so we'll watch that and see how the next few months progress. But really in great shape there, as you look at, especially where we were at last year compared to where we are now. We're doing very well. And then the miscellaneous grants. Special liability, special assessment, and student materials. Again, tracking very well there. I also want to mention I found something that we corrected in January that was related to miscellaneous grants. We received money as a pass-through for Spring Hill Rec. And so when we received money, and that's why we discovered it in January, because we got a much larger chunk in January, that had been coded revenue and expense to miscellaneous grants. And we can't do that. That's got to be a true pass through. And so it's zeroing out with revenue and expense, but you don't want to show that as an expense because you can exceed your budget authority. So we dug into that a little bit, researched it, and figured out how we needed to do that to make it accurate. So you actually see those percentages line up a little bit better than they were in December. Overall, again, expenses, the one thing I want to highlight there, two things on the expense line. Special ed, we are diving into that a little bit. We did budget over $1 million more in sped expenses, but through January, we were a little over $800,000 ahead of where we were at this point last year. And so, you know, we've been monitoring that. You've heard me say that every month. We will continue to monitor it. But we're entering the phase now where we really want to make sure, every employee that we have coded there should be coded there, and that we're not, you know, missing anything. And also trying to dive into were there expenses that were paid in July or August that were typically paid in June. Those are the two areas we're focused on. So I should have more on that in either February or as we look at end of February or end of March reporting. But that's just an area that we'll monitor. Worst case, we'll republish the budget. And, you know, revenues are tracking pretty well in that fund, but it's something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. On a more positive note, as you look at capital outlay, you know, you see there year to date, we've spent 2.5. You know, you noticed on Kylie's projections, you know, 1.3. Now that's not all we're going to spend from capital outlay. What Billy presented, you know, those are both capital outlay expenses. Those weren't huge dollar amounts, but bottom line is we're in pretty good shape. And we want to end this fiscal year, if possible, by building that capital project fund balance. But I think it also does give us confidence to move forward with doing these capital outlay things. Yeah, I think in general with capital outlay, because it's not a one-time expense, but it's as close as you can get almost in education to a one-time expense, because a lot of these things you hope not to do for 10, 15, 20 years, which on the staffing side, those are recurring expenses, right? That when you add to it, it's just going to build on itself every year. And so I think if budget-wise, we're in good shape, and if we take care of these things now, you know, most of the time they're just going to get more expensive, right, as we move forward. So I do feel like we're in good shape with our capital outlay fund. Last note that I have at the bottom left, you'll notice we are $159,000, a little more than that, with where we were at on a dollar perspective. If you remember in December, we were at 114,000. So at least we're trending up. It's not a lot, but it is some, and we're headed in the right direction there. Any questions?
No. Yes.
If you were to make a prediction on the capital outlay, where we think we're going to land, I don't want to put you on the spot at this meeting if you want to think about it, but you know, one of the big concerns I have is making sure that we've retained that capital money to address the big issues, and I don't want to be in another she situation again.
Yeah. So I'm going to answer it and give, I'm going to be bolder than I like to be, but still leave myself.
Valhalla, you Viking.
I mean, I think in terms of, I look at it as what can we add to that fund balance, right? And we finished just under 3 million in capital project fund. I think we can add 7 figures, so $1 million plus to that fund. That's certainly my goal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Guys good? Hey, thank you so much. Do you guys want to go through the action items and we'll break right before the executive session, or do we need a quick break? No, we're pushing 2 hours here. You guys good to get through it? Okay, action items. First one, 10.01 fire alarm panel upgrades at Spring Hill High School.
Madam President, I'm going to move to approve 10.01 as recommended.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Any other conversations, questions? Okay, Ms. Henderson.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet?
Yes.
Mr. Hole?
Yes.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
approved.
Great. Up next, 10.0 school, high school track resurfacing.
Madam President, I'm going to move to approve 10.02 as approved, a like for like upgrade of our service.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other conversations, questions? Great. Ms. Henderson, please take the vote.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet,
Yes.
approved.
And the last action item, 10.03, the USD230 legislative platform for 2026. We just wanted to make sure we had it on the books.
Madam President, I'll move to approve that as well. With the note that we certainly appreciate what our representatives, Senator Adam Thomas and Representative Chip Van Houten are doing for us. You couldn't ask for better friends to help push for this stuff. So with that said, I continue my moving for approval.
Second.
Great. Motion and a second. Any other questions, conversations? Mrs. Henderson, please click the vote.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
approved.
Okay, great. Up next is the board work calendar. It looks like we're on track. We got the RSP. The board member redistricting is on here also, John. And then approved district fees. And then we have more policy changes coming at the work session,
Next week.
right, Josh? So we look good there. Anything else we need to discuss?
I'm going to break from procedure here. It doesn't have to do with the calendar, but I wanted to give a shout out. We've got a special guest in the audience tonight. One of our appointed board members for Spring Hill Rec, Jessica Prochnow. And in the 2 years that I've been sitting on this board, I think this is the very first time we've actually had a board member from Rec sit in on our meeting. I know we've had Brian Peel, their executive director, but this is the first time we've actually had a board member. So I wanted to say thanks for coming, Jessica.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing that. Okay, moving on to superintendent report.
Yes, I'll be brief. Again, the Kansas legislature is in full session. Some of the legislation that we're watching, Senate Bill 281, which is really the substitute bill, they continue to go back and forth with that. They'll be back in session tomorrow. Whether they will take it back up in the Senate remains to be seen. It did pass eventually the House last week, but there was some contention. It was passed for all students, both public and private. That is still a contention point. So we'll see what happens when that moves to the Senate to see how that may turn out. The House Bill 2451 passed by a large margin in the House. That bill is a little bit troubling. If you read it, it basically really does spell out exactly and places a lot of limitations on what types of information can be provided, both in print form as well as verbally from staff when it comes to any bond election. If you remember ours last year, it has always been that a district could provide and pay for factual information about the bond. The language in it, depending on how it's interpreted, it could even say that would be a violation. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. They also, in that legislation, which really kind of ups the ante a little bit, they basically say that any staff person that is found in violation of that is guilty of a Class C misdemeanor with a fine of $500 and 30 days in jail. So again, a lot of things in that bill that we'll see how it goes. You know, I think there should be some limitations in terms of what can and can't be done by a district. But there, you got to use at the same time, keep it balanced. So we'll see what happens there. 387, JC knows about, that bill is the one that would require that every single free reduced lunch application be verified by our own local nutrition staff. Currently, because of the way it's written, the law has, statute has been, basically only 3% are required to be randomly verified by our local staff. So if that, you know, is, becomes law, that will create, you know, again, not that it can't be done, but you go, from right now, we have probably close, at a high number, probably, let's just say hypothetically, we have 15 to 20% of our applications of our students that are free reduced lunch that are returned. We're only doing 3%. You're going to increase that by about six times the amount. So we'll see what that happens. Not that we want to make sure definitely that those students are exact, but that is going to definitely increase a workload that we would have to address. We're following that. As you know, Senate Bill 244, which is known as, to you all, has been commonly referred to as the bathroom bill across the state of Kansas. It did pass the House and the Senate. It was vetoed by Governor Kelly. However, there were enough votes there that very easily the Senate and the House overrode that veto. And as soon as it's published in the state register, which is supposed to be later this week, it becomes law immediately at that time. It addresses basically multi use restrooms in terms of that have or where more than one person can be there in the same must be designated gender-wide, gender-specific. And then you have also with that, then it also requires that districts refer to students have on their permanent records their biological gender. I know that you all have received, as all districts in the state probably have received outside groups that have, you know, given their version as to how that should be implemented. And I can say that with having internal discussions with our personnel, that we have no problem at all already doing what the law says. So, but again, that is out there. And then a couple others talk about was the budget bills. The budget bills, as we said, it was interesting is that up until late last week, the full House nor the full Senate have had any debate on the budget, the actual, especially the education budget as a whole. It's all taking place in committee. So we should begin to see in the next couple of weeks debate in both chambers on the budget, which again, the biggest portion of the budget is education. So we'll be following that to see what happens. And then the last thing I want to say, you heard RSP talk about kindergarten enrollment tonight. That is huge. Well, we have kindergarten roundup every year. This year, it's going to be held on Friday, April the 10th. Now you might think, oh, I thought we always had it the first Friday in April. Well, we usually do, but this year was an exception because we didn't want to conflict with the fact that apparently, from what I understand, is April 1st. Well, April the 3rd is Good Friday. And so we, you know, a lot of things with families do different things. So we moved it to the 10th, and we've had that out there advertising it. In fact, registration for that opened up. I got March 6th. It would actually open up on February. I think it was February the 6th. And I think as of this morning, we had this morning, because I had our executive cabinet check, we had a little over 200 already have made a registration for that. And we're still looking at April. So there's a lot of time, but again, ideally, I would really, the closer we can get to 300, the better off we are. So that's the number I'll be watching, is how close are we to 300. Today, we were in the low 200s. That's where we're at. And people that want information, they can go to our website. We have some information out there. And then I wanted to kind of reckon from protocol, but following Director Hall, did want to give a shout out to our HR department last week for organizing and hosting that teacher interview night that we had on site that allowed individuals looking for a certificated teaching position could register, and we had our principals give up their time, directors, and we had over 20 individuals that we had slots for that came in and looked into that. I know some of you stopped by, but again, it was very organized, and shout out to our HR department. They were able to interview some very talented and energetic potential teachers. I know that in our hiring, we still got a long ways to go, but already this year, we've had some very difficult content positions that normally we would struggle until the very end to fill. And I know that just, in the last few days, some of our very tough content positions that we have available, we've been fortunate to have individuals agree to sign a contract for those. So again, shout out to our HR department. That's my superintendent's report.
Great, thank you so much. And with that, we need an executive session.
Okay, we want to take 10 first?
Well, let's
Just have it start.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You're good. It's late.
Yeah, it's late. Madam President, I move that the board go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interest of and identifiable individuals. Under COMA, those to be in session include the Board of Education members, superintendent of schools, and assistant superintendent of schools and administrators as requested. The executive session to begin at 8:15 with the open meeting resuming at just at 8:30 at this place.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Henderson, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
approved.
Yeah, we have to wait.
Okay, we're back.
Madam President, I move to approve 14.01 as presented.
The second.
Any other conversations, discussions? Ms. Henderson, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman Martinet. Yes. Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Beecham,
Yes.
approved.
Great. With that, we're out of here. We're adjourned.